that the tips get stained as to whether or not you're clean or not.
Yeah, you just have to find a clean part of a paper towel. Okay, these have now dried. So before we do any other painting, you need to decide where's your light coming from and where's your shadow going to be. So if my light is coming from up above, I want to save a section of light in a it's sort of curved but not exact. You can see that? And the light source, if it's the same light source, will cast a similar shape on the others. So that is the part I don't want any paint. So if the paint, if that is going to be where the light hits, actually I might even put that closer to the end. You want it to kind of follow the shape of the object. So if it curves, if it's rounded, you do want it to be slightly bent to match the shape of the object. So if I know that my light's hitting up here, then that's going to be the darkest part of my water drop. The other part, the lightest part, is going to be down here, because as the light goes through the water, it diffuses and fractures, or whatever it is called, and it's going to be lighter down here. So I did kind of a teardrop thing, and I'm going to have this light hitting from the side on this one. So my shadow is going to be, instead of at the very bottom, it's going to be more on this side. Does that make sense? Okay, so the next thing we want to do is make sure our brush is clean and we have the same colors. I have the same colors right here that I used in this one, and I did pull some directly from the palette. So I'm going to just do one drop at a time. So I'll do one and then I'll let you go ahead. So I'm going to, just like we did with the background, let me shift glasses. I can see with my other ones better when I do up close stuff. Okay. Alright, so I want to first wet this.
Actually, the brim of your hat is blocking.
Ah.
There you go.
Thank you. I was doing some cleaning today and put my hair up, and I'll just leave it. Alright, so I'm just wetting around where I drew the highlight. And I wanted my highlight drawn very lightly so it doesn't show. I just tried to do it dark enough that you could see. But do you see it's shiny?
Yeah.
Well, maybe you do see it shiny. Yeah, it sucks up a lot of water really quick. Alright, so again, I want where the water droplet is, I want it to be darker. So I'm going to start with my darker colors that were up there and just lay that in. I want it to bleed kind of just like the background did and change color. I want that darker because I want a little more exaggerated. So I went straight to the palette on some of that. And then I'm going to get some of that off my brush. And then I want it to get lighter as it gets down here. So I'm going to pick up some of the yellow and put down here. We're not going to worry about the shadow yet because this has to dry.
Okay.
So what you're doing is just laying in the color, the darkest side where your water droplet is, or the highlight is. Try to make sure that's really smooth. Okay?
Okay.
Now, and then do the others, same way.
Okay.
Paint around the highlight.
So I want to start with my darker color. Oops. Wait,
start with your water.
Get wet. Oops, 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 oops.
And this one might not be as dark as the other one because the color around it isn't quite as dark. All right. Right now the one edge of my water droplet looks almost like the same as the background, so hopefully when I put the cast shadow it'll look alright, because you don't want them to look identical. Oops, forgot to wet it first. The reason why I'm wetting it first again is just to have a softer transition of color inside the drop.
It might be too wet. Is that possible?
It's possible. Just try to control where the wet is, so that
Oop, got too much.
it doesn't overflow the area. Well, I want that much lighter. So I'll just come back and add water. It dried really fast. Okay, while that's drying, I'm going to come over and pick up my teardrops and do the same thing to them. Or drips, doesn't have to be tears. It could be tears of joy. How are you doing?
Okay, I think.
Yeah, you're doing fine. Sometimes I just pick up a little too much paint and have to wipe it off. And that's okay too. Okay, so that's step 2. Fill in the water drops.
Actually, I may have just drawn martini olives. Pink ones.
Well, that's okay. You might
It's a
have
food
created
thing.
something new. Okay, so then the only thing we have left is create a subtle shadow underneath your teardrop or your water droplet. So looking back at these, I usually add an additional color than what I've already used. I added, I think, a little purple in this one just to add a little more depth to it. That one I think is just too dark. These are, to me, a little more harsh. I like when it's more subtle. So you see the difference between these shadows and these shadows. These are subtle. Those are harsh. I think I like these better.
Yeah.
So pick some of the color you want. Now, watercolor is transparent, so it will show through what is underneath. But I still like to take some of the color that I have. I'm going to add just a tiny bit of blue to this one and see how that goes. Just a little bit of blue, because there's very little just blue in here, into a green. And opposite, okay, see how wide the water droplet is? The shadow will not be any wider than the water droplet. So here, so if I come down here, here's the edges of the water droplet. See how the shadow starts at the edge? So it's like a smile. It'll start at the edge. Start at the edge, come down. And this is where I use the tip of the brush, you know, up along the edge to the side. And then drag up, go up to the side on the tip, and drag along the bottom and make however wide your or thick your shadow is determines the height kind of your water drop. If your water drop, if this part, the shadow is not very thick, then your water droplet's pretty close to the surface.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. What should I do for shadows for a monocolor? Mix those two together?
I would get whatever your reddest red, your darkest red is.
That's that one. And
just go over what you have, because it'll anytime you layer a color, it's just going to make it darker. So like I'm going to pick a lighter color here because this one's lighter. I'm just going over what's under there with a lighter shade. I mean, it's a darker shade than what's there. Actually, I like that better. I like that better than some of the other ones. That was more subtle. And I was just saying how I like the subtle better. Let's see if I can lift some of this off and make it a little lighter.
Actually, I should probably just take a trick from
Now when I look at this, what I want to do, to me, these two colors are too much the same, the background and this part right here. So I'm going to come back and make some of this a little darker to pop this from here. These two are so similar, especially right in here. The value, when I squint, there's hardly any difference. So I'm just going to go back to my colors and add just a little bit more. It's dry enough that I can layer it now. And that separated that a little better. And I'm going to add just a little bit of green over here as though it's picking up the green. Hi, Penny. From above. And if your water droplets look too much like olives, then you can change the shape of your, like I'm gonna change the shape of this a little bit, make it a little smaller. I don't know that that'll matter. It doesn't have to be elongated either, so it could be more round.
I want to draw darker around this one, but I'm afraid it's going to look too much like the shadow. Don't you think I need to?
Let me see. I would make up here darker.
Inside the...
Inside. Because right now
it's close to this.
Yeah. And so you got to make one thing darker, and you want the inside around the highlight to be the darkest part of the bubble of the drop, because that's where the light's entering and it'll diffuse to the opposite side. Okay, so I'm going to come back down here. I'm going to create a little bit of side shadow on this one with some of the colors that are already in my palette. I need to make it darker to show up. Are you warm or is it just me?
I think it's just you. I'm really comfortable.
Okay.
Hard work teaching.
I just get hot sometimes, you know, that time of life. Alright, so what I did on here is my shadow is not dark enough to delineate from the background. So I need to make it darker, or a different color. It's a little dark, but we're playing. That one's a little better. And I don't know that I like the really sharp point on these, just experimenting. You know, that looks a little awkward. I don't think, even if it was dripping, it would have that sharp of a point.
Oh yeah, I see what you're talking about.
So I'm going to see if I can, probably can't tone that down, but hey, this is where you practice. You don't do this on a fine finished work of art if you don't know what you're doing. And anytime you're working on something and there's not enough variation in the contrast, you have a choice to make the object darker or lighter, or the background darker or lighter. And sometimes when we don't think about the other option, we make the wrong thing. You change the wrong thing, when in essence if we had changed the other to either lighter or darker, it would have been easier.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, because I just like blew that one up. Oh well. Yeah, I go dark around it.
And that's probably a little too blue, considering there's more green inside. Again, you know, it's just observation of, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And comparing the two shadows, I really like I like the less stark one, the less harsh one better. So that tells me I need to be a lot lighter on the background where my shadow is going to be, so I don't need to make my shadow as dark. So, see if I can lighten some of that just by getting it wet and lifting it off. I don't want to scrub. So you want everybody to know not everything turns out just the way you want it to. It often doesn't. While that's drying, oh, here we go. There's the bubbles. That's not bad.
No.
Give you something to practice,
Yeah.
play with. And honestly, there are all sorts of YouTube videos and
Here, you're recording. You can put mine in and show.
see, I have a student. Yay! Wendy's here.
It looks like a large-eyed reindeer. Doesn't it?
Oh, that's funny. That's Rudolph.
It is.
You got a Christmas card for next year.
I do.
That's hilarious. Crack me
I'm
up.
just drawing some antlers.
But you know, we're practicing. We're playing.
That's
you
right.
know, it's and then say if you had something like this and you wanted to add a drop, you could always add a drop. You might have to lift some out. See, I'm just wetting this.
Mm-hmm.
And then I can possibly lift enough out that I could create
Oh yeah.
the
And
look
if you
of a
just
drop.
darken it and put on a white spot, you're good.
Mm-hmm. But this is where, because I didn't save the white,
Yeah.
that I would have to come back probably with you know, that gel pen or some. But I just, you know, there is options to add things that aren't there to start with. And then when it's dry, oops, there went my, it's not dry, so I don't even know that this will write, but
Just enough.
see?
Mm-hmm.
So that, you know, again, I don't mind this, and maybe doing it where I don't
Twice.
totally save
Yeah.
the white. Maybe that's too harsh
Yeah.
too. But you do want
you
that
use
to be the lightest part.
You didn't use the pen on those 2
Mm-mm.
teardrops.
No,
I actually like the softer one at the bottom better.
I do too. But again, unless you try stuff, but I know I have saved the white when I've done this before. But if you like it softer, just mute it or let drag some of that
Color.
color over it. I don't mind that at all. Ta-da! Look what we figured out.
Yeah, I actually like it muted.
Okay, good.
Good.
Because I'm looking at these. I can't tell. I don't remember. It could have been with the pen, but anyway, give it a try. See what you like. Try different colors of shadows. Try to make sure that whatever your shadow is casting has some of the color, in it.
Mm-hmm.
Especially it needs to repeat some of the color that's behind it. And if you make your paint thin enough, it will.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Cool, I did bubbles.
Yay. Alright, I'm going to stop this.